Welcome to episode 3 of the Victors Nation podcast. I'm your host, Jason Robinson. We are brought to you by Big Banter. Make sure you follow them on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok to get your sports news involving Big Ten football. With me are my wingmen, Derek McCarty and Dre Fame, and featuring another awesome guest, Justin Roh, co-founder of Blue by 90 and general manager of Valiant Management. What's up, guys? It's almost game time, baby.
How's it going, Victors Nation?
What's up, Nation?
Love it. What's going on, guys?
Dre, you want to let us know what we've got on the agenda here?
Oh, I'm so sorry, guys. Today's podcast, we will be talking about NIL's deals, how in recruiting and how it impacts Michigan football, and a lot more stuff. So stay tuned.
Yeah, so be sure to visit thevictorsnation.com. Keep you up to date with some news, anything that you need to know about Michigan sports, football, basketball, hockey, baseball, anything involving Michigan athletics. Be sure to, if you don't already, join the Victors Nation Facebook group. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Listen to all of these podcasts, which after this week are going to be coming to you on a weekly basis at least. And when you're on the Victors Nation website, be sure to sign up to log into our forum. Let's bring all of this conversation to one community. So now, Justin, thank you so much for joining us today. So first off, when Jason introduced you, he mentioned that you're from a group that we feature pretty frequently on our website and on our Facebook page, Blue by 90. Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about who Blue by 90 is, what Blue by 90 is?
Yeah, absolutely. No, appreciate that. Thank you guys for featuring us all the time. So, Blue by 90, we started off as just a podcast, me, Jack, and Kaylin, back in actually March of 2020. COVID hit, and we had nothing better to do other than drink beer and start talking Michigan football in March of all time. So it was, the world was shut down, and we're like, all right, there's no better time to start a podcast than now. So we just started, had a couple beers while we're chit chatting about the upcoming season, and it just started taking off, and so we continue to grow. We have a great community, great following. Followed it up. Obviously, that year was tough, in 2020, but was able to grow it. And then, 2021, we had some really big tailgates, which was awesome. Got to meet a bunch of our followers at the tailgates and at the Big Ten Championship, which was fantastic for the, going to that Ohio State game, and then the Big Ten Championship after. And so, now we have grown it into 20,000 followers on Twitter, another I think 10 on Instagram, and now we just launched in the past 6 months. We launched blueby90.com, where my guy CJ has been killing it with all the articles, and so you can go check out. I mean, he is cranking out 6-7 articles a day, which is nuts. But he's a full-time student at Michigan still as well. I need to sometimes I'm like, you got to do your homework, man. We don't need that 7th article today. Go make sure you write your paper instead. But no, man, it is honestly people ask me, what is Blue by 90? What do you do for it? And I just keep going back to I honestly just do it for fun. We've been able to turn it into a business, and it's great now, but I do it for the love of it. I'm still just a gigantic Michigan fan. We all are. And so it's been a great ride, and I've met a ton of great people, including you guys, because of it. So thank you guys for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, that's, not far off from how Jason got started here with what was at one point in time the Michigan Wolverines fan page, and it eventually evolved into the Victors Nation. So, and again, all of us, we're here, and from the others that we've connected with, like Isaiah Hole and Vaughn over at Maize and Brew, just a bunch of people that really do this for fun.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
Blue by 90, we heard a lot about COVID babies, right? So Blue by 90 essentially was a COVID baby.
There you go. That's right. You can say that for sure.
So you've had some pretty good success then the last couple of years. What do you think some of the things are that have really contributed to that? You're definitely a source that we look to get up-to-date content, to get accurate content. I imagine that the 20,000 followers that you have are just like us when they look to your content.
Yeah. Sorry about that. But yeah, so I don't know if you could hear the phone ringing there, could you?
No.
Okay,
No,
sorry. My phone rings up. But sorry. So yeah, man, it's I think the biggest thing there for us was building that sense of community and interacting with fans the same, like we are, we now have like some insider access and stuff like that, and we have beat writers and stuff, but at the end of the day, we are guys that sit and drink beer and watch the same game that you guys are, and that's how we found success. Was we really like, though, if you go and listen to our podcast, it's no different than guys just sitting around and drinking and talking the same way as you would with your buddies. And I've had a lot of people say, like, when I listen to your podcast, like I feel like I'm in the room with you guys just having a beer, and I'll crack one with you. And so that's how we found, a ton of success. I to be honest, I don't know many. I know there are a bunch of podcasts out there. There's, a lot of Michigan podcasts. A lot of them are straight interviews, or they're, trying to break down and be, do the analysis thing. Like, we are not trying to do that. We're just trying to be the for the fans, by the fans type of people. And it's been awesome, because yeah, at the end of the day, like we said, like, we're all the fans and we're all just sitting there watching. I know a decent amount about Michigan football, specifically in football. And if I've done podcasts with Jake Butt and broken it down and done the analysis side. But at the end of the day, what I love to do is just talk about that big play that Blake Corum just broke, or, something funny that Swanky put out on Twitter or some shit, so like, that's really what it's about. And I think the other thing too is, like, really the success that we've had is befriending the rest of the big accounts on that are out there. Like, I can truly say that I'm friends with Swanky and Isaiah and Clayton Safey, and the Michigan page on Instagram, U of M Nation. So like, it's really fun. Even LG Hale and Don Thomas. Like, I can say I'm friends with these people, which has been fun. And it's I just think that, like, honestly, when I go back to Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, which you guys do a great job at, like, there's nothing better than being with a bunch of Michigan fans. All, you're reading everybody that's watching the same game, and you're all thinking the same thing, and jumping in and all that stuff. Like, it just makes it so much more fun to have that community around it. Even if you've got 3 guys or girls at your house that are watching the game with you, it's fun to scroll and see what other people. So that's really been it for me, and how we found success.
Yeah, it's been fun from our perspective too. I really enjoyed the content you guys put out. So, Blue by 90, everyone, if you don't follow them, be sure to follow. I know you're clicking on their articles because I can see the analytics telling me that you are. So I know you're at least aware of them. But if you don't follow them on social media, be sure to give them a follow. So let's switch gears then.
Plus, I think I saw CJ like post, like, I think 4 or 5 times on our Facebook page today, and I was wondering the same thing. Like, what else? Like, did this guy have another job?
Dude,
it's crazy,
he's a grinder.
The content he's putting out. Yeah, for sure.
I don't think he sleeps. I honestly don't think he sleeps. So
you can't.
If there's something breaking, you for sure can see. Can go to blueby90.com and get the article within the hour. And a lot of times, like you said, you can find it on the Victors Nation Facebook page as well.
Yep, for sure. So, Justin, you're a man of many hats. So, in addition to being the co-founder for Blue by 90, you are also the general manager of Valiant Management Group. So, talk to us about that. What is the Valiant Management Group?
Yeah. So, the Blue by 90 is my passion project for sure. But Valley Management Group is my career, which I am super passionate about as well. Obviously, it's still revolved around Michigan. So we are the marketing agency. We represent the University of Michigan student athletes in marketing brand deals, apparel, et cetera, all for NIL. And so NIL is like, it's the biggest buzzword. I think it might be like, the Oxford Dictionary word of the year, possibly, or something, especially in the world of college.
Probably, yeah.
Right. Especially in the world of college athletics. It's, we do everything we can in our power to represent the Michigan student athletes and provide them with as many opportunities as possible. So like I said, whether that's working through the MDen and having the JJ McCarthy jerseys up, which sell a lot. There's a lot of people walking around with those JJ jerseys for sure. Or if it's working with JJ and Bose, and Bose headphones, or Blake Corum and Wolverine boots, and working to get them brand deals, because obviously there's a lot of reach for a Michigan student athlete. There's a huge fan base, and so there are a lot of opportunities for them, and we do what we can to provide them those opportunities.
So, you're talking NIL, and we'll spend a little time in this podcast talking about NIL in general. So, very happy to have you on to have some of that conversation with us. So, can you tell us a little bit about how the Valiant Management Group was formed, kind of how it was created to be that piece for Michigan student athletes to find those deals?
Yeah, it's a good question, because it didn't just happen overnight. So our CEO and founder, Jared Wangler, he and his dad actually formed the Valiant brand. So you might go into the MDen and see the Valiant branded clothing. So that's where it first originated, and then that was back in, I think, 2018. That started, and it's been growing ever since. It's a staple now in the MDen and for Michigan gear. And then in 2021, in the summer, that's when NIL came about, and he saw an opportunity and took it and ran with it, and he started with thinking, all right, yeah, we'll see, let's do a couple brand deals, see what happens, represent a couple guys, and it turned into Valiant Management Group, and the champion circle now is the collective, which we all have. Powered by Valiant, and so it's been growing ever since. I joined him a year ago now, and now it was just me and him for a long time. We're up to, I think, 8 full-time employees, and so it's been funny how it feels. I've only been there for a year. It feels like a decade, because this whole industry of NIL has just sprung up on college athletics so quickly, and it's moving so fast that it's kind of crazy. But it's been awesome to be a part of it, and there are huge things in the future as well. Like I said, that Michigan fan base itself provides a lot of opportunities for these student athletes. So we're excited for what's to come.
Good, and those are. All of us, we're Michigan fans, right? So we fall in this group of people, but the most noise about NIL, or the lack of NIL, typically comes from the fans, right? So
Right.
how could the average fan help Michigan NIL efforts?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think just to touch on that for a minute, I always, you're never going to please everybody. I always say it like Michigan could go 15-0, and there still would be one fan that's talking about they should have won by more in the national title game, right? And it's sport. It's not only just Michigan fans; it's sports fans in general.
Sports fans.
Yeah, we always, we put our heart and soul into, watching it and following it and all this stuff. And you want your team to do well and always just be as great as possible. And it'll never be totally satisfied. So, yes, there are, improvements that can be made in NIL. It could be better. We could do more deals. We could, get more money, whatever it is, for sure. But I think that honestly, for what it has been and how quickly it has evolved, we've done a great job, in my opinion. I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, more of my team, and the university as well for helping us along. But for the average fan, speaking of the collective and Champion Circle, if you go to championscircleufm.com, you can go and purchase a membership, a monthly membership, and you get exclusive access to some things. You get some gear. You're a part of it. The goal is then you're supporting Michigan student athletes, and that money goes straight to the collective, which in turn goes straight into student athletes' pockets. And so they still have to do the NIL activities, so it's all compliant with the NCAA and the IRS and all that stuff. But any fan can go out there and support. And there are options for $100 a month or $10 a month. So I think it's it's a Netflix subscription, right? That you're talking about. I know we've all got to subscribe to Peacock as well now, apparently. So I know that's another subscription we got to do.
So I'm going to the first game, man.
Exactly. That's one way to
get subscriptions.
Not that Michigan needs any help being sold out, but that's one way to make sure that you sell out is by putting the game on Peacock where nobody can find it. So I encourage people to go support it. It's a great cause. These kids, we really pride ourselves on doing it the right way. We don't pay for play. We don't pay for recruits. It's funding the student athletes that are here and not just performing on the field, but they're performing in the community. They're good kids, they're good teammates. They're in good academic standing. There are a lot of aspects and variables that go into it for a student athlete to be able to actually be compensated. And so that's what I would say is I would encourage to go check it out at least and give it a run.
Awesome.
And how much they give back to those players, how much they give back, especially JJ and Corum and others as well too. It's amazing. It's awesome.
I mean, see Will Johnson already giving back in the community, running youth camps.
Yep.
Yeah, you see those leaders, like, there are a lot of quarterbacks out there around the country, or fill in the player that are around the country making a ton of money that aren't doing what Blake Corum and JJ McCarthy are doing. The fact that if you go to, I think it's jjforthekids.com or .org or something like that for his foundation, look at what he's doing to truly build up a foundation for kids that need the help. And Blake's doing the exact same thing. Like you said, Will's doing it. Other guys are, part of the Wolverine Boots campaign that we did, and we make sure to do this with a lot of our campaigns. They painted and built benches for a middle school football program. So that's part of it. Instead of them just doing, throwing up an Instagram photo or video and getting paid to do the promotion, they're doing that act of service where they're impacting the community. And now guess what? Those middle school kids are probably going to be big Blake Corum fans, right? And, and he loves that, and he talks about it all the time. So I really do think that Coach Harbaugh preaches on it. He wants them, to be there's a lot of aspects of financial literacy and internships that they're doing for, surrounding NIL at Michigan. So there's a lot of cool opportunities that these student athletes are getting, and it's not just getting them a paycheck.
Yeah, that's great. So NIL is the hot topic. Like most of our listeners right now, we're casual fans when it comes to NIL, right? So it's good to have you with us, Justin, because you'll be able to provide a little more insight on what's actually taking place. So let's stay on topic here with NIL. Jason, I know there was some stuff that you wanted to transition and talk about. Dre, I know there's some stuff that you wanted to get to with NIL as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think most of our followers know what it means, or what it stands for. It's name, image, likeness. It's compensation, just a brief definition. It's compensation paid to student athletes to partner, promote, represent brands, so their autograph, their own merch, appearances, etc. I believe it was adopted around 2021, but Justin, I kind of want to hear more from you on this topic. What, and if you have any negative impacts too, but what positive and negative impacts have happened since NIL was adopted?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of pros and cons out there, and I mean, to be honest, it depends on who you ask. Usually, what those pros and cons are. It depends what coach you ask out there. It's funny because you saw, I think last week, Mel Tucker had some comments about NIL that were more on the negative side, right? And then Jim
Yeah.
Harbaugh comes out here this past week and says he's advocating not only just for NIL, but for TV revenue sharing, which is the next step. He's looking forward, looking ahead, trying to get his student athletes more. And so it's really interesting, where everyone stands on it. I do think that there are some cons in the fact that it's, commercializing things more. People say that the amateurism is gone. I think that there is some validity to that, but also, like, I'm around these kids a decent amount. They're still kids. They still love to go to Chick-fil-A with their buddy and grab stuff. Grab some food. They still mess around. They love each other. They're at our signing event this past weekend. They're all just dicking around with each other the whole time. They're still 20 years old. People forget about that. And yeah, they're making a little cash, which I think that they deserve. But they're still kids. And so I really don't think it's impacting a lot of people in a negative way. And probably a biased opinion there for sure of somebody who's in the middle of it. But
Yeah.
I think that, I guess at the end of the day, I think the pros definitely outweigh the cons because, these kids are very marketable and they're making money off of their name. They're not just making money, right? And so they deserve what the market rate says that they have.
Yeah.
Not
Absolutely.
with go ahead, Jason. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna kick it off to you, man. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say with the NIL, and you said we don't pay to play, and other schools are paying to play. How does that like impact Michigan? Like decommits like Elias Randolph, I think I said his name right. How does that
Elias Rudolph, I think.
impact? Yeah, Elias Rudolph. How does that like impact Michigan with other schools paying to play and we don't?
Yeah, I think that I'm not in the room for any of those recruits, so I don't fully know exactly what those conversations are like, but I think from a coaching perspective, and Coach Harbaugh has been public about this too. He wants guys that want to come here to play football. That's really where it's at, and so I think that it's. There are some guys that are out there just chasing a bag, which more power to them. I'm not going to hate on somebody that wants to go get paid for what they're worth. Like that is literally, I can't say I wouldn't do it. If I was 17 and somebody was offering me something. So, but I think that, he's looking for people that are in it for the right reasons. And it's continued to the culture of Michigan has shown because of that. It's been obvious how great the culture is right now in that locker room, and they have guys that want to be there. They want to show up for 3 hours in practice. They're not complaining about it. And so, like, you see, the guys that I've been involved with, even from last year's team, they're genuinely the nicest people I've ever met. I look at Jake Moody and Brad Robbins, and, that's the special teams guys, but, like, they're so nice. And Brad Robbins texted me yesterday and said he's coming back and he's going to come to our tailgate on Saturday. This is literally hours hours after he just won the new punting job for the Bengals.
Me and his mom have a real special relationship.
That's awesome.
I love Mrs. Robbins.
Yeah,
I've never met him in person. I know last year Dre had him on his FaceTime, so I got to meet him a little bit. I didn't even know what to say because I didn't have a lot of time, and all I got in was, "I love your mustache," which is epic, by the way. It's really good.
It is epic. It absolutely is epic. It's funny because he's getting so much love from the Bengals social media because of it as well.
And making that roster too. It's awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, man. Him winning that job is just an ode to, I think that Coach Harbaugh and the staff doing it the right way is paying off for these guys in dividends in the future as well. Because at the NFL level, they talk about character a lot, and you have to be a locker room guy. Obviously you have to be talented first and foremost. There's no doubt about that. But they're earning their spots. You look at Ronnie Bell, who just got his invite for the 53-man roster as well. And, there's just good kids all around. And I think, like, at the end of the day, that is going to help the program for the long term. You see what happens at a Texas A&M, right? And, they could turn it around for sure. And again, it's not like I've been down there and in their locker room or in their NIL. I have no idea, but I see it from the outside and see what has happened there. I think building a culture, even though NIL is a factor now, is still the biggest piece to having success in football in the year 2023.
For sure. And you touched on some of those things, right? The culture, the phrase, "those who stay will be champions." And, this is very much a Harbaugh culture. This is very much a culture of a football team that just wants to play football and that just wants to get better at football, which is awesome. Because I think that, like, that was Jim Harbaugh's dream about coaching college football, is to have a team with this type of identity, and he's built it. And you know what? He's kind of built it by letting the players build it, right? He kind of let the players take over in 2020 and reset the culture, and they did a fantastic job. One last thing on NIL before we move on and touch on a couple other things. So we see it. You're talking about the difference between promises to 17-year-olds versus people actually, developing and getting the rewards once they're in the program, which is kind of the stance that it seems like Michigan has taken, is more, we're not going to pay you to come here. When you come here, that opportunity is going to exist once you go and earn it. So we see things like you mentioned, like Bose, Beats by Dre, Wolverine Boots. We see the external impact that it can allow them to have with what JJ does in the community and what Blake Corum does in the community. So in general, where is Michigan sitting right now, do you feel, versus other programs when it comes to NIL?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's hard to say that for sure, because I'm not in any other. I only have one real example to go off of, and that's where we are at right now. But I think Michigan, like I said, I think Michigan's in a really, really good spot. I see the frustration from fans on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook when a 5-star recruit chooses a different school, and then everyone just screams NIL, right? I see that for sure, and I get it, but I truly go back to what I just said, which is I think that there is a balance that is necessary for these programs between talent and culture. And I think that you're not, when you're preaching the culture and you're not just preaching a checkbook, you may not always win that battle for a 5-star recruit. But I think at the end of the day, you're going to get guys in that locker room that want to be there for the right reasons, and they're not going to be hitting the portal the next year because they're chasing the next bag or something. So I think that that's why I believe that Michigan is in a really good spot because of the way Coach Harbaugh and everybody has been approaching it.
I agree. We want football players, right? Still at the end of
Right.
the day. So absolutely.
Coach Harbaugh loves guys that love football. He says it all the time. And that's it's he, like you said, he's let the players do it. He's stepped back a little bit, let some senior leaders do it, but he's also shaped this program around himself. At the end of the day, he's a football guy. He's a football guy that he just craves football. That's all he knows. That's all he wants to do. And so when he gets guys around him that have that same sense, then that's when like I think about it all the time. The best programs out there, their programs take on the personality of the head football coach, and that's where Michigan's at right now, and that's why they're really successful.
Absolutely. So maybe we could probably talk about NIL all day, pretty much. But I want to switch over to our head coach. Let's talk briefly about Jim's 3-game suspension, the hamburger gate, which is not mostly the topic here, but the 4-game suspension from the NCAA fell through. Now we're seeing a self-imposing suspension involving the first 3 games. Looks like U of M is imposing this suspension to satisfy the NCAA in some way or form, or put this to bed regarding recruiting violations and or whatever happened during that investigation. So I want to get a quick spiel from all 3 of you guys. So Justin, what are your thoughts on this topic? How do you think this will impact the team this season?
Yeah, touching on how it'll impact the season, I think some guys have said it already, and I truly believe it. My spin on it is I love it. I think that it's going to light a fire. To be honest, Michigan was going into the season without that chip on their shoulder for the first time in a really long time, right? Like, you finally feel like you're on top of Ohio State, and Ohio State is the one with a chip on their shoulder. It's 2 years in a row. Oh, maybe it's not a fluke, right? They're now saying like, oh, we need to go out and chase Michigan. Michigan's the chasee, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, now this is the one thing that I think lights that fire, and they're going to play for their coach. And now it's like them versus the NCAA, right? Like that's how it feels. And so, as much as I'm sure they'll miss Coach Harbaugh, I think the same way that some injuries may have some young guys getting some play in these first few games, it also gives Jerome Moore some play, in week 2 and 3. It gives Jesse Minter, it gives Coach Hart and Coach Jay Harbaugh, some opportunities. So I love it. I think that at the end of the year, we could be looking at it and be like, that 3-game suspension was the catalyst for what happened in the next 9 to 12 weeks.
I agree. I think it were not similar to, or different situations, but it kind of reminds me of like the Tom Brady or the New England Patriots versus the NFL, or the New England Patriots against the world. Definitely lit a fire under them going on to win a Super Bowl that year as well too. Reminds me a little bit about that. So I 100% agree with everything you just said, Justin. Derek, what are your thoughts on this whole topic?
Yeah, so the NCAA seems to have it out for Jim Harbaugh, and they have for years. And I think this is the effort by Michigan to try and just get that to calm down. Like we'll self-impose something. Doesn't sound like Harbaugh was too happy about it, but to your point, Justin, I think absolutely. I think that going into what a lot of people look to as a cupcake non-conference schedule, I think it's going to really light a fire under the beginning of the season and the effort. But speaking of the team embodying Jim Harbaugh, right? Almost every single player that got asked about the suspension said, don't get bitter, get better. right? Like they
Yep.
are like Jim Harbaugh clones right now, and and leave it to Jim Harbaugh too to end up turning this into an event where he's so good at making it like, well, not about him after big games, right? It's almost comical watching someone try to interview him because he grabs one of his players and throws him in front of the microphone instead.
You got to talk to this guy. Yep, absolutely.
Right. The way that he promoted his assistant coaches and his dad as the coaches for the games that he suspended. I mean, I don't know. It's something that I think a lot of college football fans look at as silly. The whole Burgergate situation, especially when there's so much going on that seems much more over the line than something like that. But I think that it will light a fire under the team. I think it will provide motivation for the team. And I think it's a cool way to highlight some of the abilities of the coaches on staff too. I think that's how we keep building great coaching staffs, is by turning them into great assistant coaches into eventually great head coaches. And I think that this is part of that process for some of these guys.
Spot on, guys. Trey, what are your thoughts on this whole ordeal?
I think it's absolutely silly, but I think at the end of the day, this lights a fire under us, and I think we take it all the way to the national championship. I think this was a big mistake in Michigan. I mean, Jim Harbaugh is going to be getting handed the trophy by one of the NCAA guys at the end.
Yeah, I think all four of us agree with that. We wish, right? So yeah, I'm hoping for that too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thanks for your take on that, guys. So I want to jump into finally our first game matchup. So let's switch to game one. Honestly, it feels like Christmas, right? Really excited for it. First interim head coach, which 4 or 5 of the interim head coaches that we have the next 3 games here, which I absolutely love spreading that knowledge around as well too. Jesse Minter calling ECU a quote unquote giant killer. I think he's really keeping these guys level headed, on their toes. I absolutely love it. ECU had a few close games the past couple of years. Big games, South Carolina in 2021, NC State in 22. They're not a bad program. 8-5 record last season. There's somewhat of a winning standard there now and making a couple bowl games. First one got canceled because of COVID. Last couple of seasons. Now, that's not the same team as last season. They lost some elite players, specifically at quarterback, running back, a few wide receivers. They're going to have to, I think, rely heavily on their defense to even make it a game. We're number 2 entering this season. We have the recipe to win the main prize. So I don't care who we're playing. We have to stay humble and strategize against each opponent. Focus on one game at a time with prep work, obviously, on our biggest rivals throughout the season. And dudes, we got a Mazo. We're a 36-point favorite right now. My prediction is 56-10 Michigan. I want to see this offensive line really impose its will early on and gain momentum throughout the rest of the season after this game 1. I'm excited to see the defensive front as well too. So overall, the defensive play actually to build some early momentum heading into the 23 campaign. But what do you guys expect to see from game 1? And what's one thing you want to see that would be a positive for the rest of the year moving forward? Justin, I want to ask you that first.
Yeah. It is. You talked about their schedule. Last year's schedule, that was a good team. I mean, they're 8-5. Yeah. They're like 1 to 3 point losses away from being, 11-1 or something like that. So really, really impressive. But as you said, it's a new team, new year. What I'm looking for from this team is I'm looking for a lot of firepower. I want to see, let's come out, let's show the people what this offense is really about. To be honest with you, last year, and this is the way that Jim Harbaugh does it, he doesn't care about fireworks. He doesn't care. He wants to hold the ball, run it, win the game. He doesn't give a shit, right? But I would love to see, let's see JJ McCarthy throw it around. I want to see like Hawaii last year. Let's see when he can do that again, right? Because we really didn't see after Hawaii for a while. It took him a while, to get back going. And then obviously he was really, doing really well at the end of the year, playing well in the Purdue game. And then in the second half of the TCU game, where when he's like unleashed, he's unbelievable, right? And so I want to see them unleash him a little bit. And then, I want to see this in the trenches, us just absolutely bully ECU. And, all right, hey, we're the big boys here. Let's make them know that we're the big boys. And I would love a shutout. That's my goal. And I really do think that they're going to try and put it on them in these first 3 games to prove a point.
Especially with Jim being, absolutely agree with everything you said. Derek, what do you got? What do you expect to see from game 1? What do you want to see going forward?
Yeah, I think that we're going to come out on fire, right? I expect to see what you're talking about, Justin. I expect to not just dominate on the ground with a couple of the good running backs that we have, but let's air it out a little bit. Let's get the tight ends involved. Let's get the receivers involved. Let's get the young receivers involved. I expect to see a lot of guys play. But one of the things that I'm going to be paying the closest attention to, ECU is a solid program, right? They're not a cakewalk necessarily. We should still walk through them pretty good. It'd be pretty disappointing if it ends up being a close game. But they've demonstrated an ability to throw the ball around the last few years. And we've got a lot of young guys, inexperienced guys that are going to be playing in the secondary. And some of those guys are competing potentially for a starting spot this year by the time we get to Big Ten play. Others are giving us a glimpse of the future. I want to see our secondary. I want to see our secondary locked down. I trust that our pass rush is going to be pretty solid, but I want to see the corners. I want to see Josh Wallace play well. I want to see the safeties, even though they're maybe backup safeties that are going to be starting this first game. I want to see them look the part like starting safeties, and I want our defense to completely shut them down. I would love to see a shutout. If our secondary looks like they can lock anyone down, I think that's a good promising look, because especially at corner, that's one of our question marks going into the season.
Everyone should be looking at the position group too, absolutely. So I'm excited to see that as well. And Derek, you acknowledged already what Justin already had stated. Let's get JJ's arm pretty much warmed up here, and basically throughout the season too. So hopefully we see that 50-50, but we got 2 solid running backs and a solid offensive line. So we'll see. Dre, what are your thoughts? Like, what do you expect to see from game 1? What do you want to see moving forward the rest of the year?
From game 1, I think it's going to be a shutout. I think we're going to win 55-0. But what I want to see is how our back end holds up, what guy steps up. I want to see our defensive line, see how that's been coming together on the offseason. I know our O-line is stacked, so I'm not really worried about them. I want to see our receivers. It's a lot I'm looking for. I just want to enjoy the game, actually. But I really my most important take, I want to see the secondary. The secondary.
Well, while we're on the
just glad football
topic,
back,
oh yeah. I'm excited to see that position group, so I'm glad Derek brought that up. While we're on the topic of some games of game 1, but some of our bigger games, so our rivalry games. So Dre, you want to kick that off?
Yeah, I just want to know like your thoughts on our 3 games: Michigan State, Penn State, and Ohio State. My take is I think Michigan State is going to be the closest out of the 3.
Wow.
I think they want to try to get back at us for the tunnel incident. So I think they're going to play us a little tougher than they would without that last year. Penn State, I think, since we're going to Happy Valley, I was a little nervous, but it's not a night game, a whiteout. So I think we can get that done. I think they're going to play us tough too, but I think we're going to find a way to win. And Ohio State, I think we just going to do them like we've been doing them the last 2 years. I think they have no answer for us. Our running game, they're breaking in the new quarterback, either one of the two that's going to play. I don't know their names right offhand right now, but so I think we're gonna go to the national championship. As my prediction, national championship. Derek, what about you?
Justin, go ahead, Trey. Sorry.
You're good, Derek. You want to go?
I was asking. Yeah.
Yeah. So, we did cover some of the trap games in our last podcast. But yeah, let's talk about the big three, right? So, Michigan State first. Everyone knows what happened at the end of that game last year. And I think that game's going to be a little emotional. Emotions are going to be really high at the start of that game. And I think maybe beginning of that game, it might be a little closer than what the end of the game's going to be. I think once it gets to the second half, I think we're going to have that game firmly in control. But because of what happened last year, I wouldn't be surprised if we keep the pedal down all the way till that final whistle for that game. So I think we'll end up beating Michigan State pretty handily. Penn State has me a little worried. That's the game on the schedule that they've got good quarterback that they're going to be rolling with. They've got talented running back room over there. Their defense is going to be tough. They're a tough program. They have a good, solid coaching staff, and it's at Penn State. So that's going to be a tough. I would expect that to be a lot like it was 2 years ago at Penn State. I think it's going to be pretty tight. I think it's going to be pretty physical. I think we'll pull it out, but I think it's going to come down to one or two big plays towards the end of the game to do it. In Ohio State, Ohio State year in, year out recruits as good, if not better than anybody in the country, right? So they're loaded with talent. I don't know that talent is developed or at the same level as what we're putting on the field right now. Receivers, yeah, absolutely, right? Marvin Harrison Jr., one of the, without a doubt, best players in college football, right? But I think that coming into the big house, I think we're gonna have three in a row after this year, and I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being 2 scores again that we end up beating Ohio State by. And I think it's, hey, natty or bust. This is the team. This is the depth. This is what we've got.
Absolutely.
Love it.
Justin, what about you?
Yeah. So, I mean, I was a little shocked to hear that MSU was going to be the closest one.
I just think it's because it's going to be an emotional game, to be honest. I think we're going to win it, but I just think it's going to be the emotions of, and then it's at night at Michigan State.
I can feel that.
I hate it.
All right. I can understand that. I can understand it. I mean, here's my thing. I'm like, I don't know. I struggle to gain the confidence. So the guys are a lot more confident than me. That's for sure. The players are, but I always am just hesitant. I think that when you're talking about Ohio State, they still are, I think, super talented around the field. I think that they lack some depth at position groups on the offensive line, the defensive line. I think in the secondary as well. But I still think they're super talented, and they can. Here's the thing: I still think that they can easily go out and win 12 games. They could go undefeated. There's no doubt about it. But and the same thing with Penn State. Drew Aller is a stud, and they got stud running backs. So that offense is going to be tough to stop. But at the end of the day, and same with Michigan State. I mean, they have some talent as well. I think that they are struggling for especially the depth. They definitely are a tier below Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State for any of that.
No doubt. No doubt.
So, but I still think, like you said, it's going to be a dogfight for sure. You just never know what's going to happen in East Lansing. There's no doubt about that.
Especially at night game.
Especially at night, that's for sure. The emotions will be running high. You are not wrong about that at all. So, yeah, man, I don't know. I mean, I think that here's my take. Everyone's like natty or bust. I get it. We've went to the college football playoff the past couple of years. I just think it's crazy to say that out loud, knowing where we were 2 years ago. 2 years ago, it was, fire Harbaugh. It was 2-4. It hadn't beaten Ohio State in 7 years. All of a sudden, it's only 700 days later, and it's natty or bust.
Yeah.
It's just kind of crazy.
Yeah. It's flown by for sure. So I agree with all you guys on these takes with these three rivalry games. Michigan State, it's a night game. It's going to be emotionally charged, I think. I agree with Derek. I think it's going to be closer than what we wanted to be in the beginning, and we're going to blow them out in the second half. We're a really good second half team last year for sure. Penn State is my close game. I still think their defense is extremely solid. Justin, you mentioned quarterback play and solid running backs. Absolutely 100% agree with that. That's my close game. I still think we come out with a W, so 2-0 right there. Ohio State, I don't think they can strategize. I don't think they have some of the coaches to strategize a game plan. I'm a firm believer of that. We think we beat them convincingly, maybe more in the second half, like we did the last year. And I think we get an undefeated season and we win a natty this year, guys.
You guys are gonna have this. This is gonna be on every Ohio State message board after this. You know that, right?
I love it.
That's all right.
I love it.
We'll make
We
sure
don't like them; they don't like us. I love it.
Yeah. We'll make sure our friends over at the Ohio Pod.
They'll be tuning in. They're actually subscribers on Facebook as well too, so they'll be watching.
Yeah. But
Hey,
but
guys.
to your point, Justin, natty or bust is an interesting mentality because it can be a very amazing season, and once it gets to playoffs, once it gets to talking about a national championship, there's a lot of things, a lot of small things can go right or wrong. It is not easy to win a championship.
It's not easy, and you're talking natty or bust. You're talking 15-0. We hadn't went 13-0 ever in the history of Michigan football, and it's the longest standing college football team of all time. They've got the most wins. It's one of the most historic programs, and so that's where
hopefully the first one to reach 1,000.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's the goal this year, but I agree with you. There's so many variables. The ball's got to bounce your way. Everything's got to go right. And even last year, thankfully they fought through adversity with injuries, but injuries can happen. You just never know. You think about what could the 2017 Michigan Wolverines have been if they weren't on their third string quarterback? Who knows? Maybe that's a 10-win, 11-win team. I don't know. And so I think there's just so many variables to make it to have that mentality of natty or bust. And it's so hard. Go look at Alabama and Georgia and Clemson and every one of those. They don't go 12-0 very often. They really don't. And I know it seems like they do because it just seems like they're the powerhouse, but it's really hard to do. And so, yeah, I completely, I think when you have that mentality, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. You're setting yourself up. That's why I'm hesitant on saying, I have the confidence. I have the confidence, but Blake Corum always says keep your feet, or what does it say? Keep your head where your feet are. They got to
Feet
go.
are, yep.
They're talking about practice today and the walkthrough on Friday, and they're talking about how we going to beat ECU. Yeah, they're thinking about Ohio State, no doubt. There's not a day that goes by that you don't think about them and Penn State and Michigan State and everyone else. But the way that you win a national title is not to be thinking about January 9th and the national title game here on August 30th, right? It's about how do we win the day, win the week, and then you continue on from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So real quick, we're running a little long here, which is good because it's been fun conversation, without a doubt. But Dre, you want to start us off with one bold prediction on the season?
JJ wins the the Heisman.
Wow.
JJ
That's
wins the
my bold
Heisman.
prediction.
All right.
My bold
All
prediction.
right. Justin, do you got one bold prediction on the season?
I'll say this. I think, I don't know how bold this is really with where the stat is at, but I think it's that JJ breaks the single season passing touchdown record, which again, if you compare it to Ohio State's, it's like half of that, but at 25, I think he could get it. He had 22 and 8 last year, essentially didn't play the first game. So I think that's one. Can I give two? Is that okay?
Yeah. Yep. That's all right.
That's cool. Go ahead.
I also think that this offense last year, I believe it was 40 points per game that they averaged, and I think they beat that. So I think they average over 40 points a game this year.
All right. Jason, what about you?
I think we're going to get a Heisman winner. I agree with Dre. Either JJ. I know Corum and Edwards are going to split, but I think 1 out of 3, I think we're going to get a Heisman winner this year. That's my bold prediction.
Great. I'm going to cheat a little bit. I have 2. One of them's kind of fun. I think we see a big guy scorer this year. Your offensive lineman talking about having 10 offensive linemen on the field at one time.
Zach.
Yep. I think we see one of them catch a touchdown pass, or at least get in the end zone. But truly, I think we get a 1,000-yard receiver this year. I think we, for the first time since 2013, have a 1,000-yard receiver.
I love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good prediction.
Those are some awesome prediction, guys.
I'm going to keep going here. I'm sorry. I'm stealing the show. I apologize. But I think Donovan Edwards breaks the running back receiving yards record.
Receiving. Okay.
Right.
Oh,
I love that.
I believe it's Chris Perry, I want to say. But I think he's going to get it. They're going to use him a lot in the slot or wherever he is, but he's going to be catching passes.
Kind of want to change my response now. That one's good. I like that one. I'm going to steal that one too. We'll transition to close here, guys. So I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Appreciate all of you, all of our fans. To our guest, Justin Roh, thank you again, dude, and for allowing us to share your content to create a stronger Michigan family and community. We appreciate you a lot as a wingman, but really as a person as well, too. We appreciate you.
Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Justin, man.
You guys are awesome. It was awesome meeting you at Hopcat last year, and continue the friendship. So there's no stronger bond for friendships than Michigan football, right?
Exactly.
We lose together, we win together. We're in it together.
And if you're not a Michigan fan, you really don't have any friends. Derek, go ahead.
So stay tuned, Victors Nation. We've got a lot more content coming your way. Season's just getting started this weekend. Couldn't be more excited for it. Look forward to bringing more guests, more analysis, more thoughts on a very fun season.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, Nation. If you haven't already, please go like and subscribe to our YouTube page and keep supporting us. Thank you. Go Blue.
Go Blue.